Hey guys, what's up? It's Scott Clark with Scooter Media, and in today's video, I'm reviewing the video features of the newly released Canon R7 mirrorless camera. Let's get into it. And as you just saw from that video intro montage, the footage coming out of the R7 is fantastic, especially for its price, which we'll talk about a little bit later. The Canon R7 is the first APS-C mirrorless camera released by Canon, along with its little brother, the R10, which puts it right in the middle of the Canon mirrorless lineup between the more expensive full-frame R3, R5, and R6, and the more budget-friendly RP and R10. The R7 features a new 32.5 megapixel APS-C CMOS sensor, which has a 1.6 times crop factor compared to Canon full-frame cameras. Here's an example of the different field of views between the full-frame R6 on the left with the RF 16mm 2.8 lens on it, and the R7 on the right with the exact same RF 16mm lens on. And as you can see, the R6 obviously has a much wider field of view. The Canon R7 is a photography-first camera, which means it has some pretty great photo features in it, including high-speed shooting up to 15 frames per second with the mechanical shutter and 30 frames per second with the electronic shutter, as well as a raw burst mode and some blazing fast autofocus. But for today's video, we're going to concentrate on the video features, and it boasts some great video capabilities. The R7 can shoot in what Canon calls 4K fine, up to 30 frames per second, and it is oversampled from 7K and looks fantastic. Here's a few examples of the 4K fine shot at 24 frames per second, and as you can see, the colors are beautiful and the image is sharp with a lot of detail. It can also shoot in regular 4K up to 60 frames per second, and it also looks great. Here are some examples of the 60 frames per second slowed down to 24 frames per second, and it's so awesome that this camera is capable of 60 FPS, especially in 4K, as that is something that I will use all the time. It does also offer 120 frames per second, but you do have to bump it down to HD, and it doesn't record audio in that mode, which is kind of the norm on Canon cameras lately. But as you can see here, it is totally usable, and this has been scaled up to 4K as well. Another great shooting mode the Canon R7 possesses is the time-lapse video mode, which allows you to set the interval timer and the amount of shots you want, and then when you hit record, it takes multiple photos and then stitches them together in camera. This again will be something that I'll be taking advantage of for sure. The Canon R7 records in the IPB compression format and not All-I, with each having its own pros and cons. IPB is a more compressed format, so therefore your file size will be smaller, but with that compression it can be harder on your computer when editing, and the quality is a little less than All-I. All-I compression makes for much larger files, but they are less compressed and usually a little easier on your system when editing, and the quality is generally a little bit better. I've personally used both formats, and for most YouTube videos, corporate videos, etc., I think you'd be hard-pressed to tell the difference between the two. When I did use the All-I compression, I couldn't believe how fast I was filling up SD cards and hard drives. The R7 is capable of shooting in 10-bit 422, so it's got great color depth, and it also features C-Log 3, so we can shoot in log and color correct and grade in post. Here's a few examples of some shots in C-Log 3 before and after grading. I have used the C-Log 3 log profile before and find it very easy to use and grade. It also features I.B.I.S or in-body image stabilization, which helps to improve the stability of the camera, which is great for handheld shots as well as vlogging. Here are a few examples of some handheld shots, and these are all done with me holding the camera and moving, or walking with the camera in my hands. And as you can see, they are pretty smooth. Here's an example of me vlogging with the camera, and I have to say I was actually surprised at how smooth this looks, as I'm just walking like I normally would. The dual pixel autofocus on this camera is amazing. It's fast and accurate and just works as it should. There are many different autofocus modes, including eye autofocus for both humans and animals, as well as a mode for vehicles. You can also tweak the speed of the autofocus in many different ways to suit your needs. And before we move on to the physical characteristics of this camera, let's talk about what may be the greatest feature of this camera. No record limit. I can't believe I'm saying that. I have been using Canon cameras my whole life and could never understand why all of their cameras, except their cinema line, had this hindrance when all of the competitors ditched it years ago. But anyways, no record limit on this camera, and hopefully that means all future Canon cameras will have no record limit. Looking at the camera body itself, it seems to be very well built and small yet hefty feeling while not feeling heavy, if that makes sense. It has a very nice substantial grip and it sits well in the hands. The top of the camera features a switch to turn the camera from off to either photo mode or one more click to video mode. followed by the ISO and video record buttons, a control dial, a multifunction button, and the shutter button. To the left of the power switch is a lock button and the mode dial, as well as the hot shoe, which Canon is calling the multifunction shoe, as it will support an audio device to add XLR inputs. On the back of the camera, there's the 3-inch fully articulating touchscreen, which is great for getting those tough angles while shooting videos. The back of the camera is basically the same as other Canon models with one exception. The command dial that is usually in the middle of the camera has been moved up to encircle the autofocus joystick. I'm not sure the reasons behind this, but for me personally, it will take just a little getting used to, as I'm so used to it being in the middle. The right side of the camera, where the hand grip is, features dual UHS 2 SD card slots, as well as the battery compartment. This camera uses the same LP-E6NH batteries that are used in the Canon R5 and R6, and it can also use the older LP batteries from older Canon 5D series, etc. The left side of the camera features a mic and headphone socket, a USB-C slot, a remote socket, as well as a micro HDMI and USB socket. And finally, the front of the camera has the RF mount and a manual and autofocus switch. Inside the camera, the menu system is very intuitive and easy to use, and if you're familiar with Canon cameras, then you should have no problem navigating your way around this camera. And if you are new to the Canon systems, then it should be a very easy learning curve for you with this camera. The camera is weather sealed, but probably only for a slight rain. I probably wouldn't be taking this thing outside in a serious downpour. Now, I'm probably going to get asked about overheating with this camera, and while I haven't had a chance to test this out yet, Parker over at Full-Time Filmmaker tested it out and could not get it to overheat in multiple modes after 2 hours of shooting. I personally will test this out myself later to confirm that, and to see what kind of recording times I can get in all of the modes. In conclusion, I love my Canon R6 so much that I wanted to get a B camera to go with it so that I can shoot multiple angles in great quality 4K. When I saw the video specs on the Canon R7, I had to pull the trigger on it, and I'm so glad that I did. I've had so much fun shooting with this, and the image quality being so good, the autofocus being amazing, it just seems like the perfect little brother to my R6. I mentioned earlier how I thought the camera was very well priced, and at the time of this recording, it is selling here in Canada for $1,999 for the body only, and $2,499 with the 18 to 150mm kit lens, which is $1,000 cheaper than the R6. That is still a lot of money, but the R7 has so many great features built in that I think it's a great value, and I think this is the perfect camera for anyone looking for a great hybrid camera for photos and videos. There aren't really any cons that I can think of offhand other than it being an APS-C format camera instead of a full frame, and that there aren't a lot of RFS lenses at the moment, but many have been announced and should hit the market very soon. If there's anything that you'd like to know about the R7 or any other R7 related videos that you'd like to see, please let me know in the comments below. And just before I end this video, I just wanted to mention that I'm not a big fan of asking you guys to like and subscribe, but it has been proven that if I do so, there's a better chance that you will. So if you have made it this far, thank you. And if you found value in today's video, please give it a thumbs up, and I'd really appreciate it if you would consider subscribing. I am really trying to grow this channel, and I can't do it without you guys, so thank you. I recently did a video reviewing the video specs of the Canon R6. If you're interested in checking that out, please click on the link here. Thanks for watching today's video. I do appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one.